Hi, I'm Michelle Chalfant, psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and human just like you, learning to navigate life's challenges. With over 25 years experience, I teach people how to get healthy using the adult chair model. The adult chair model is where simple psychology meets grounded spirituality, and it teaches us how to become healthy adults. From anxiety and depression to codependency and relationship issues, you can use the adult chair for just about anything. Each week, I share practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and a wide range of experts on how to get unstuck, how to live authentically, and how to truly love yourself, all while sitting in your adult chair. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. I am Michelle Chalfant, happy to be here with you today, talking about empathy. With Mr. Rob Volpe. I love the topic of empathy. Boy, Rob is an empathy master. He has studied it for years and years and years. He had an awakening, I'm going to call it that. He didn't call it that, but I'm going to call it that, to empathy in 5th grade. Yeah, so he talks about his life story and how he became someone that wanted to learn more about empathy, not just for himself, but now he's doing it in corporations and for the world. So I was so delighted to have him on. We talked all about what is empathy. I mean, that was the first question. And can you grow it? Can you develop empathy? So he knows so much about this topic. He shared with us the 5 steps to empathy that are necessary in the moment to then get to a place of empathy if you're not already there. And there was something startling that he shared, which is that empathy is on a decline, which is pretty darn scary because it would seem to me that the state of our world right now, today, needs empathy. We need more of this. We need to really learn how to understand others and where they're coming from so we can create more peace on this planet. So we talk all about that and so many more beautiful things. I'm going to get to Rob in a moment, but I just want to remind you guys that we have the self-worth bundle for you available. That's over at theadultchair.com/worthy. This bundle is all about helping you to learn how to develop self-worth. There are 4 meditations and journaling prompts to get you on your journey today. So head over to theadultchair.com/worthy to learn more about that. Okay, let me tell you all about Rob. So Rob Volpe is an astute observer of life and a master storyteller who brings empathy and compassion to the human experience. As CEO of Ignite 360, he leads a team of insights, strategy, and creative professionals serving the world's leading brands across a range of industries. He is the author of Tell Me More About That, Solving the Empathy Crisis, One Conversation at a Time. As a thought leader in the role of empathy in marketing and the workplace, he is a contributor to Entrepreneurs Leadership Network and frequently speaks on the topic at conferences, corporations, colleges, and podcasts. It is with great pleasure that I welcome to the show today, Mr. Rob Volpe. So welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, Rob Volpe.
Hi, Michelle. It's great to be here.
I am really happy to have you and to talk about such an important topic, empathy.
Thank you. I'm so excited. This fits so well with the adult chair and just so many things that we need in life right now.
Oh my goodness. Is that true? Yeah, I agree with you. I think we do need to have more empathy in the world, but I want to hear just a little bit about your story before we go there. Like, how did empathy is so important, and it's important to me and important to the adult chair of being really an emotionally healthy adult. You've got to have empathy. Yeah. So how did you stumble upon this and then, make really a whole career out of this?
Yeah. So, I mean, the real origin story goes back to growing up in Indiana in a small town and my parents, we moved into this small town around 1980, and we were very other to this inbred sort of community, and had an Italian last name, and just didn't come from there, weren't related to everybody. And very quickly, the other kids started to pick up on that and decided to, start rumors about me, and that I was gay, and and I was in fifth grade. And in fifth grade in 1980, you don't understand your sexual. I mean, I knew I was different, but I didn't understand all the details of it and what was going on. And so life got really challenging for me. And empathy was actually that's when my empathy superpower first emerged. So I talk about that as like my spider bite moment. And I started to use empathy as a way to navigate through school and to survive, because I realized, like, oh, well, if I can listen to other people and understand what's going on with them, I might be a little friendlier. They may be friendlier towards me, and therefore they're not going to like pick up on the latest rumor or do the thing. And so that got me through quite a lot of my childhood. And so then jumping ahead into my professional career, empathy is just something that I do naturally. But as I was getting into marketing research and started my company, Ignite 360, we started noticing what we do in marketing research is we talk to people, we find out how they think and feel, and help our clients connect with their consumer. But we were finding that our clients, after spending a lot of money on these projects, couldn't see the point of view of where their consumers were coming from. And it was like, this is crazy. What's going on? So we started to look at what was getting in the client's way. And then that led into an understanding of what was getting in our way as we were moderating and, going into strangers' homes to find out, what was going on in their lives. You get put into these situations where you're really challenged. And I write in my book, I share a lot of those stories because it's important for people to see where I failed and the times where I succeeded. But it was through that experience we started to really dive into what was happening, and recognize the data was starting to come out that there was an empathy crisis. Empathy levels had been declining and had been in decline for decades. And that led to like, we got to do something about this. And what I found was happening was there was a lot of talk about we need to be more empathetic, but nobody was explaining exactly what to do to really break that apart so that in the moment that you're interacting with somebody, how do you actually get to a place of empathy? How do you dismantle your judgment? How do you ask good questions, actively listen, all the things that make up what we call the 5 steps to empathy. And so that's kind of where it came from. And clients really embraced it. We started coaching and training that. I turned that into a book, as I mentioned, using my own stories to help people learn and be entertained through my own, misadventures, as I call it. And now I coach, train, speak at various companies, large and small, and different types of organizations. So that's kind of the big overview of me.
I love this. And I really feel like this world, we really need more empathy. But before we jump into this, and thank you for your story. I like the spider bite.
Thank you.
Fifth grade, like that's a long time ago. Like honestly.
Well,
Wow.
as I'm 54 now, yeah. I mean, 1980 was a long time ago.
Dang.
But those things and those things that happen in your childhood, I mean, I find they do inform a lot of your decisions
Yep.
and behaviors and things as you grow up.
Yeah, it's everything, right? It really does. It creates a roadmap for how we exist and live as adults. So it's everything. Tell us, what is empathy exactly for someone listening? And yeah, I know. What exactly, how do you define it? What is it? If someone is listening and they think, I have that, I don't need to listen to this. Well, let's give them a definition of what the
Yeah,
heck
let's
empathy means.
dive into that, because what I've actually found is that empathy is a topic that people get really confused about. They don't. There's different aspects and types of empathy, and so when you ask somebody, and I often start my presentations early on, I ask the audience, like, what is the definition of empathy? And I'll usually hear 3 different answers, and they're all true. One is it's about feeling the feelings of somebody else as they're feeling them. And
Mhm.
then somebody else will say, well, it's about seeing the point of view of someone else. And then yet another person will say, oh, it's like walking a mile in someone else's shoes. And this is the more colloquial version, but all of those answers are actually correct. Empathy, as it's defined, is about connecting with other people on either an emotional or a cognitive level to
Mhm.
understand the lived experience of somebody else as if you were them, and then use that to communicate in a different way, to make different decisions, to build trust, to problem solve, to forgive. Empathy fuels all of those things.
You just said, and it's empathy is needed for healthy relationships. I
Oh,
mean, any kind of relationship from, a work relationship all the way down to a
your
mother
partner,
child to partner to all of it. You
yeah,
can't have a healthy relationship without empathy. Um, correct.
yes, no, 100%. Empathy empowers the skills that we need to be the people that we are and the people that we hope to become.
Mm. You mentioned something. You said emotionally or cognitively connecting to someone. I'm wondering about that because when I think of empathy, and maybe it's because I'm an empath, I don't know. But I think about empathy, I think about you it's feeling the emotion and it is like the three things that people say. It's that walking in the other person's shoes, all the things. But don't you have to you have to get in your body and feel what someone else is going through? Isn't that what empathy is?
Emotion, that's what emotional empathy is, or it's also known as affective empathy. That is the feelings of somebody else. But there's also this cognitive thing. Empathy is this E word that some people are afraid of, and that's like emotion. And
Mhm.
so not everyone can drop down into it. And it's difficult. Not everybody is able to feel the feelings of somebody else. The people that have, to carry on with sort of the spider bite and the hero analogies, there's the people in the world that I can identify as an empath or a highly sensitive person in
Mhm.
HSP. They
Mhm.
are like the empathy superheroes or the empathy Olympians. Like the muscle is strong, you're really in tune to it.
Mhm.
Then there's the segment of society that doesn't have that skill as finely developed, and they're the ones that where the empathy muscle is maybe atrophied, and
Mhm.
so they're needing more help to learn how to be empathetic or what empathy is all about, and try to get into that space. Um, so yeah, so if you think about emotional empathy, the way I talk about it is, if you go way back in time to when we were all living in caves,
Mhm.
emotional empathy is what you would have with the people that were just like you, that were living in the cave with you, that had the same rituals, opinions, life experiences.
Mhm.
And then cognitive empathy is what you'd have when the people from the cave down the road would come over. And they may not have those same values and
Mhm.
belief systems,
Mhm.
but you might be able to imagine or understand what they're interested in. Let's say they come over and say, hey, we want to do this new thing we've come up with called farming. And to
Mhm.
farm, that means we're going to have to clear these trees out of the way.
Mhm.
All right, well, you might have more of an emotional connection to the trees. And so you're not able to like totally get where they're coming from because you've been in this hunter gatherer mode and that's made you happy. But you need to have cognitive empathy. You need to be able to see the perspective. Like you've got people that are emotionally connected, and then you've got the
Mhm.
strangers that come over. So think about that as they can be
Mhm.
your neighbors, others in your community,
Mhm.
and they're coming over and they want to do something new and different. And you're trying to figure out where they're coming from. You may not emotionally be able to feel what they're feeling, but
Mhm.
hopefully you can see their point of view and get where they might be coming from. And that's the difference between emotional empathy and cognitive empathy.
Got it. So when you say that to me, I'm thinking right away of, let's say, partnerships, right? Meaning like a romantic relationship. And if I'm in relationship with somebody and I'm trying to explain to them that I'm hurt, let's just say, hey, you know what, Rob, you really, really hurt me. Da 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 da. When you said, X, Y, and Z to me, that really hurt me. it made me feel very sad and all the things.
Right.
In order for us to feel connected, don't it would seem to me that you need to really get how I'm feeling or go there with me more than just cognitively. Is that true or not true? Because that's how
I
I
mean,
feel like, and again, you don't have to be as sad as me, but what I'm hoping for is that you really are, maybe you're just with me in this space. You're holding
mhm,
space for me. Maybe
yes.
you're not at the same level, but anyway. What
Hopefully, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think hopefully to really be fully functioning in your relationship, if you're able to feel, and you
Mhm.
should be able to, again, these are the people that would be living in your cave. So
Mhm.
for your romantic partner, you hope that they're going to be feeling what you're feeling, and you have that deeper connection.
Mhm.
And yeah, they may not be at the same depth of sadness, but hopefully they can, one, see that you're sad and
Right.
understand that you're sad, and then use that to get down into that deeper space. And maybe they're going to feel sad with you.
Mhm.
Um, but they need to at least be able to provide comfort in that situation.
Mhm.
Perhaps they did something that
Mhm.
caused the sadness. So can you then own up to it, acknowledge it? But yeah, I mean, ideally, partners in a relationship, like you're those are the people that are in the cave with you. So they should be down in that emotional space with you.
So what if you're, because I'm thinking of emails that have come in over the years and social, questions that have come in. What do you say to somebody if they're in a relationship and they say, "You know what? My husband, my wife, my partner, whomever, they cannot go there with me. When I'm really sad, they change the subject. When I'm really upset, they yell at me." That, in other words, there's no empathy.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So if I'm in a relationship with someone like that, what am I to do if what I need is empathy and this person that I'm in a relationship with does not have empathy? What do I need to do, or can I do something?
Well, you can always do something. It's like a
I mean, yeah, that's an
degree,
open,
which
that's too open.
like
That's way too open. All right, I'm going to say it again. Is there something that I can do to help them to be, to have more empathy for me or with me and what's going on
yeah.
with me?
Yeah. So let's just assume that the relationship is generally healthy, and
Mhm.
that maybe there's
Mhm.
this one situation where they're not dropping down into that space with you, they're not seeing you, they're not hearing you. It's okay to ask for empathy. I hope you can see where I'm coming from. I hope I need, or even just saying, like, I need you to see me and to
Mhm.
hear and what I'm feeling.
Mhm.
Um, I was giving a talk with the Ethical Humanist Society of Long Island this recently, and one of the questions that came up, a guy said, like, I try to be empathetic with the women in my life, but then when I get into the you should do this and I try to solve things, they don't want to hear that. And my response
Mm.
was, well, yeah, that's not empathy. You're
Mm.
taking the empathy and then trying to get to a solution for them. And sometimes people just want to be heard. And so you need to be aware of what the other person is needing in that moment. And if you're not clear, ask. How do
Mhm.
just it's okay to say, how do you need me to show up for you? How do you want me to support you in
Mhm.
this moment? And the reverse of that is true, where it's okay to ask for it and say, I just need you to hear me. My husband and I work together. So he works with my company somewhat. And there are times where he comes in and he's all hot about something. And I'm like, I go into CEO mode and just want to
Mhm.
solve something. And it's like, oh, wait, but is that what he really needs? Does
Mhm.
he just need me to share? Do I just need to listen to him? And we've developed that communication where it's like, I just need you to listen to me right now. And then it's like, okay, the shoulds and the coulds go out the door. We can save that for another time and just listen and be
And
present.
it would, and I appreciate that example because I think with couples, I could go off on a big tangent right now, but we as couples need couple training.
Oh yeah.
We really need to develop something. An adult chair for couples, which I think I've probably written half of that book. It's in my it's in my Google Drive because I realized, like, my husband and I have taken him, and now he very willingly enjoys it, but dragged him in the beginning, like, we need to go to marriage retreats, couples count, all of the things, because and what I've realized over the years, excuse me, is that there's no training. I mean, there's a lot of books out there for sure now. There weren't back then. But, how do you do relationships well? And I think that what you said, just because I've been a therapist for 20, almost 5 years, um, we just want to feel heard.
Yeah.
That's it.
Isn't that ultimately, we just want
It's
to be seen, heard, and know that we're enough?
That's it. You nailed it. It's about feeling witnessed and listen to what I'm saying. My husband and I were talking about this earlier today because he said, I have figured it out. He was sharing with one of his friends this morning. They went and had a coffee, and he said he was sharing with his friend. He goes, I was telling him, your wife just wants to hear you, even if you don't. And here's the thing. Here's the takeaway from this. You don't have to agree.
No.
No. So if someone says something to you and you're thinking, are you absolutely crazy? Or whether it's a partnership or a friendship or parent, I don't care who it is. It's not about agreeing. It's about witnessing and really seeing and hearing them and saying, oh, I feel that. I get it.
Yeah.
That's empathy. That's
Yes.
what we need.
Yes, and that's actually part of step 4 in the 5 steps, which is integrate into understanding, because a lot
Yeah.
of people have come to us and said, oh, if I see the point of view of somebody else, does that mean I have to give up my own perspective? And the answer is
Mm-mm.
no. You
No.
can still, and I do an exercise with people where I just have, and it's really fun in a large group to have them talk and share their favorite flavor of ice cream. And
Mhm.
very rarely is there a match. But then it's like, okay, now you're going to go to an ice cream parlor together and you've only got money for one scoop. So
Mm.
learn, be curious, be open, try to understand what it is each person likes about the different flavors and see if you can find a compromise, because empathy is part of getting to compromise. And that's one of the things that you can use empathy for. And it becomes a very fun sort of activity as people learn about each other. But it doesn't mean that you can't still love chocolate ice cream. It just
Mhm.
means there's another way of looking at the world, and that's okay. We want to be
Mm.
curious about that. We want to try to understand, hold space for it.
Holding space is key, and this is a hard one. I realize, and I don't want to go down the politics road, but I'm just going to say this, between politics, and then included in that would be COVID, and did you get the shot, didn't you get the shot, and judgment if you did, and judgment if you didn't. It was like, I'm like, what is going on here? And I realize empathy, and I'm interested in the study. You said empathy has been on the decline, and absolutely. Like I've seen so much of it. Like it's sometimes even scary, being in our world and having an opinion one way or another. And I've seen so many relationships end because of, again, the politics or COVID, or they came to dinner on Thanksgiving and they had their shot or they didn't, and they knew how I felt. I was like, wow, we've just heard so much of that. When did this decline start happening? I'm just curious as far as the
You know,
studies go.
this the first study I'll mention is from the University of Michigan, and they started looking at university student life surveys starting way back in 1979.
Mm.
And they took 76 different universities, looked at this question of can you easily see the point of view of your classmates? And they found a 40% decline from 1979 through 2001. And then it
Wow.
stayed, yeah, and it stayed at that lower level until the study ended in 2009. They published the report in 2010. That was kind of my like awakening when I was on CNN, and it was like, oh my God, we got to do something about this. But it was like crickets. I was in an airport when I first heard about it, and like no one else was paying attention.
Wow.
But then they refreshed the study in 2016, no change. We've seen at Ignite 360 in our own studies, nearly 1/3 of adults, this was as of data last year, 1/3 of adults could not easily see the point of view of other people. They could not agree with
Wow.
that statement. 1/3. So
One
one
third.
third of the people you and your listeners are going to meet today, whether it's a colleague, a family member, a clerk at the grocery store, 1/3 of them are not going to be able to easily see your point of view and understand where you're coming from. That's a problem.
Why is that though? Like what's happening that it's on such a decline?
Yeah, it's like death by 1,000 cuts, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's so many things from globalization has suddenly we're now bumping into each other in ways that we never would have, not just in the United States, but around the world. We're getting exposed to
Mm.
people of
Hmm.
different beliefs and opinions. It used to be the white picket, if you go back to that 1950s stereotype, it was your community in that small town that you lived in, and that's not the case anymore. So as globalization's part of the issue, the way kids are being raised today, where they're so busy and they're so constantly involved, they're not allowed to be bored anymore.
True.
And
That's very true.
when a
Hmm.
child is bored, they will often turn to creative, imaginative play like role playing. And role playing is one of those key things that helps build empathy, because if I'm going to role play and pretend that I'm, Captain America, I'm actually not being me as Captain America. I'm trying to be Captain America.
Hmm.
And that's empathy. It takes empathy to understand, well, how would Captain America act in this situation and how would they respond? So kids aren't given it, it's not that they're not having any opportunities, but they're not having as many. And then you also see our relationship to technology. There's
Hmm.
so many screens that are in our lives now, and those are one-way relationships with the screen. And then more recently, there's social media, which is so much about validation and self-worth rather than about affirming another, really connecting to another person. And then you've got political polarization, and that's a huge concern that people have. That's been going on for 30 years now, where it's, we're digging into right and left and all that. Reality TV is also role modeling for us. It's you don't work out your issues, you flip the table and storm out of the restaurant.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, there's so much competition, winner takes all kind of mentality that's
Yeah.
taken over, and that people just think is the way to be, and that's actually not the case.
It's like we're defending ourselves. When I think about the lack of connecting, I think that we are in a state of coming from, to use my language, from the adult chair, like that adolescent chair, like we're sitting in that fear place of something, fear that someone's going to judge me, so I'll judge you first, or fear of comparison, or regardless of what it is, we're living what I call chin up, right? So we're living
Mhm.
up here instead of in the body.
Yes.
And when we're chin up and living in the head space, we're ready to defend. We're not listening. You're not listening because you're defending, right? So yeah, everything that you just said, when you were talking about, I was thinking social media. I mean,
Oh yeah.
God, and the comparison that we do when we're on social media, and these kids, that's how they're being raised. And it's just kind of scary. But and I forgot about, like, when we did, like, being little, role playing and even pretending. I remember having like, I remember in my basement, my parents had, like, we had like a little grocery store thing set up, and I'd go grocery shopping. We'd play house. My friends would come over. I don't know, like, with, I see kids in restaurants now with iPads and these little kids. I'm like, what is going on? Like, and
Oh yeah.
the screens, and I get it. I'm not here to judge anybody. I get it. I threw my kids sometimes in front of Barney. They didn't have screens when they were really little, but once in a while I needed Barney. And my husband was one that said, way in the beginning, I'm going off on a tangent, but he
No.
said, how brilliant is this? He says, we're not going to say no to our kids, and we're never going to do screens. And I looked at him, I'm like, really? Okie doke. So
And
I
how
went
long did
away.
that
This is
last?
a side note. This is really funny. So I remember the first time I went away, I had to go away for a weekend. I did some training, and I came back, and he's saying, no, no. And my son Graham is sitting in front of Barney, and I go, I thought there was no T and no TV and no word no. Anyway, very funny. I'm like,
And
okay.
that's and,
But
and that's
anyway,
the
yeah. So it's just hard. It's really hard in this day and age, though, because we do have screens, like you said. It's very, very, very difficult. But all right. So let me ask you this question. Um, what can we do, like, today? I'm looking, I want to hear about these 5 steps to empathy that are necessary in the moment to get to the place of empathy. What are these 5 steps?
Yes. So 5 steps. First and foremost is to dismantle your judgment. And this isn't about making a judgment. It's about being judgmental. It's casting aspersion. It's all those negative thoughts that come up and then come out, whether it's on social media or in person. Dismantle your judgment. The second one is asking good questions. Make sure you're asking broad, open questions if you really want to understand where somebody's coming from. And I think this is one your listeners are going to really enjoy, try not to use the word why. You can ask why, but use who, what, where, when, and how. That's all part of asking good questions, because as we all have experienced, we are challenged with the word why since we're little kids,
Yep.
and it puts us on the defensive, and we're
Totally.
not going to open up. So ask good questions. The third one is to actively listen. Put the phone away, the laptop closed, be present, be with that person, pay attention to the nonverbal cues and the other things that are going on in the room if you're at somebody else's house, or the things that you're sensing. There's some really great stories in the book where I was doing some interviews with somebody and I could actually sense a spirit floating above the guy I was interviewing. And it turns out his nephew had just passed away from leukemia, a form of bone cancer, I think it was.
Wow.
About a month earlier. And it was like, all right, we've got to unpack this. And I spent a good hour of a 2-hour interview talking about the nephew and the impact that that had on him until we could get the energy to dissipate. And then the project was actually about soup. So then it was like, okay, and tell me why you buy Progresso. So it's
Wow.
about actively listening, and then it's about
Yeah.
integrating into understanding. As I mentioned earlier, it's making room in your head that there's other ways to view the world and to be open and curious about that. And then finally using solution imagination. So that's the point where things all start to turn back on itself. So there's a great story in the book where I talk about we were talking to people in Canada that were immigrants, and it had been coming from in Canada, the dominant immigrant populations are from East Asia and South Asia. So we were talking to a couple. I was in a couple's home from South Asia, and the woman was Hindu, and she was talking about her first job in Canada. She had been a teacher back in India, but in Canada, credits and education didn't apply. So she was working at Burger King, and
Oh,
she
wow.
was working the line at Burger King, the grill line. And I thought, okay, wait, she's Hindi and the cow is a sacred symbol. So, and then you're flame broiling your sacred symbol. How does that work? And what was that like? And so this is using solution imagination. I was able to start to imagine like, there's something here I should really explore. Let me ask her about it. And I did. And it was really powerful what she had to share. So that last step is using solution imagination. It's starting to apply what you're hearing to further the conversation or further what it is that you're hoping to achieve to get to a positive outcome.
Wow. Have you ever seen going back to politics again, have you seen, like, I think I saw it on 60 Minutes one time where they have, this group voted for the Democrat and this group voted for the Republican, and they put
Yes.
them together, right? And
Uh-huh.
they break them up into small groups and they really get to know each other and where they're coming from and why they voted for that person. I mean,
Yeah,
the majority of the people, and you might know the study better than me, but what I've watched in a few different groups, it was fascinating because we all kind of want the same thing,
we do. We do.
right?
I, yeah, we absolutely do. And we just need to take the time to listen to one another and
Yeah.
hear what
Yep.
the other person's saying, and not be so defensive or feel like you've got to like argue your side, but take what you're hearing and use that to reach a better outcome. One of the other chapters in the dismantle judgment section is called fear. And so I'm a gay man living in San Francisco, and I fit the stereotype of being liberal and towards the left. Client hired us to go to the National Rifle Association, the NRA gun show in St. Louis. And so to find out why people want to carry and conceal a weapon. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be really interesting. So we
Wow.
we go, and I share that experience and transcript clips from the interviews that we had. But what I found was that everybody that I talked to on that project, they were afraid. They
Yeah.
were carrying a gun because they were afraid. It's a big, bad, scary world out there. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, you're motivated by fear. I get
Yeah.
it. And then I would talk to a week or two later, was having brunch with some of my liberal lefty friends here in San Francisco and was telling them what I had heard. And they were like, yeah, I'm afraid of what those people with guns are going to do. And it's
Mm,
effectively the same thing. They're
yeah.
all motivated by fear. So if you can take that and start your conversation from this place,
Hmm.
you're going to be able to not only address issues around gun safety and gun control and permitting and all of that, the education around gun use, but maybe you're also going to be able to get into, well, okay, why are we feeling afraid and what
Hmm.
else is going on with crime and other kind of conditions and situations, and you can use that to work towards compromise and solutions together rather than just yell and fight with each other and do nothing.
Right. Oh, I love that. I love, is that the word behind you? Listen? Is that what it says?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ask
And
more
ask more
questions is above
questions
and listen.
and listen. Yeah. I thought it said listen. And it's so true because, I have a coaching certification, and something I teach my coaches is exactly those two things, like ask more questions and listen. And again, this applies to anybody on the planet, but when you're speaking, you don't talk over people. You really listen and wait till they're done speaking, and then you ask your question, and it's always seeking to understand. So this is so important. Um, what else? Is there anything else that I'm missing that you can share with us about empathy? Because I really hope that that as a planet that we can move more into this and really change that curve from going down. But let's start raising this up and getting curious about other people, because humans are awesome.
Oh my God,
We're so awesome. Like,
so awesome, capable of
yeah.
so much, and we have to rise, to your point, rise to the occasion. I think
Yeah.
the other piece to it, what I found is, there's before you even get to the 5 steps, I
Hmm.
think it's about having self-awareness. So it's
Yeah.
that mindfulness and that metacognition of, like, what's going on in my head and how am I reacting to things. And
Hmm.
then there's a really wonderful quote from Maya Angelou where she says that she believes that we all have empathy, but we may not have the courage to display it. So
So
I'm
true. So
always encouraging people to just be courageous to do this, to try. And then you have to practice. And you're not going to get it right. I don't get it right. I often ask people when I'm giving presentations, I'll do a survey ahead of time and I'll ask everybody that's attending, where would you rank yourself, scale of 1 to 5 being empathetic, 1 least, 5 most.
hmm.
Usually it's like a 3, 3.5. And I'll tell people, like, yeah, I give myself a 3.5, a 4, maybe on a good day,
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
also know that I'm judgmental. And, as I say, the dominant gene in my family was to be born brown-eyed and judgy. And I've had to really work on that. But we're
Yeah.
not perfect. We've got to practice. And that's the last piece of that, is to have grace with yourself
Yeah.
and that we're human. What's important to me is that we try and we
Hmm.
learn from what's happened, whether we've succeeded or made a mistake, and we try to do better the next time.
Mm, so good. Thank you. So people can learn empathy. They just have to follow your 5 steps.
We are born with the ability to have empathy. We
Mhm.
need to just learn, and basically we all got to go to the empathy gym and
Yeah.
work out and practice it.
And I say that when people ask me, I don't know how to feel my emotions. Can I do that? I'm like, we were all born with that ability to feel our emotions, and we're all born with empathy, like with the ability to do that. So if we weren't taught how to do that or modeled how to do that, I love that we can learn it. It's about awareness though, right? It's like I
Oh
have to
yeah.
become aware that, wait, when so and so was just talking to me, I went right into judgment before they even had a sentence out of their mouth. So let me pull back, let me just take a moment, let me listen. And it just takes practice. I like that. The empathy gym, is that what you said?
Yeah, the empathy gym.
I like that. Okay, cool. This was really good. Thank you. Thank
Thank you,
you. This
Michelle. This
is,
has been awesome.
yeah. Where would people find you and find your book?
So book is available wherever they prefer to buy books: Amazon, Audible, Spotify, all the places,
Awesome.
in all the formats. And then you can find me at 5stepstoempathy.com. It's the number 5stepstoempathy.com. And on social media, empathy activist on Instagram and TikTok. And on LinkedIn, my name. If you just put in Rob Volpe, Volpe, empathy activist, you'll find me.
I love that. Empathy activist. That's cool. I really
Thank
like
you.
that.
I loved the tension of those two words, because
Yeah.
empathy people think is so soft, and then activist is like just out there. And we all have a role to play. And I think activism, you don't have to be marching in the streets. It's about
Mhm.
one conversation at a time, and that's how
Yeah.
we can bring change to the world.
So true. Thank you. This was great.